Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a review of Tamron's 25 to 200 millimeter f2.8 to 5.6 G2 lens. Now this is one of those sort of one lens to rule them all type of lenses, and it's available for Sony's E mount. Now I say one lens to rule them all because when people are traveling, they always ask me, Jared, what should I get? And this gives them something that goes from 25 to 200 in a nice compact size. Now this is the second generation of this type of lens, as the first one that Tamron made was at 28 to 200 millimeters, and this time they went 1, 2, 3 millimeters wider. But what's interesting about this lens is that before it was even announced, Sigma had their very own announcement for a 20 millimeter to 200 millimeter. Now it's not a 2.8, but it's a 3.5 to 6.3 variable aperture lens. I do have a full-on real-world review of this, which is linked down below. For now, I'm gonna take it off the counter, but I will be coming back a lot to comparing it to this Sigma version. At the very end, I'm gonna help you decide between the Sigma or the Tamron if you're looking for something in this range. So what did I photograph with this lens? Well, I went out to Germany, Frankfurt, Germany to be exact, because Insta360 flew me out there for a different event, and I so happened to run into Peter McKinnon and Maddie Hapoya, and we went around town photographing, and I decided to take this lens along with me. Not only did I use the lens in Frankfurt, I also got to go to Leica's headquarters, and yes, they did let me in there to use this lens, and of course, use it at a street festival back here in Philly, so I got to run it through its paces. So let's take a look at the outside of the lens and tell you how it feels and what I think about it. So it is light. It is meant to be light. This isn't going to be the best of the best with Honor Sir, but it doesn't feel like it's cheaply built. It feels perfectly fine in the hands for what it is. Lens hood, recommendation, always goes on. Don't take it off, and don't be this person. Don't be the person that shoots like this. I'd rather have you not have it on at all than have it flipped around backwards, which doesn't look proper. In terms of filter thread, you have a 67 millimeter filter thread, which matches a lot of what Tamron's other lenses have as well. You've got a lock button right here, which locks it so you cannot zoom it. And you also have a custom control button right here that you can custom set when you put it on your camera. You also have a USB plug, which I've honestly never updated a single lens via USB at this point, but it is here, so I guess that's something you are capable of doing. So when we unlock this, you can go from 25 to 200 millimeters. So it's a pretty easy turn of the zoom ring to go all the way from 25 to 200. So it's not a bad throw at all. You do get a little bit of lens creep. If you just get it started, you can see that it starts to fall on its own like this. That's not that big of a deal. You could just walk around and have it locked if you want, and then unlock it when it's time to shoot. But what's interesting about that is that Sigma has something very similar, except they have a lock switch right now, so it's locked. But if I want to go shoot, I don't have to unlock it. I just go ahead and turn it, and it goes and clicks out of there, which I find to be pretty useful and a little better of a functionality than the one that's locked, where you have to unlock it, because you're not really gonna accidentally unlock it. You go, hey, it's locked, and then boom, it just clicks and you start to zoom. So how much does this Tamron lens weigh? It comes in at 1.27 pounds or 570 grams, which is 1/10 of a pound heavier than Sigma's lens. In terms of length, this comes at 4.8 inches on the long side when collapsed. That looks bigger than 4.8 inches to me, but what do I know? Who knows? I don't know. It's more of a grower, not a shower, because as you can see, when you zoom, there it is, I have to unlock it, it extends out like this. Now that is an important thing to think about. This is what's called a variable aperture lens. It starts at 2.8, and when you zoom all the way out to the end, it goes to 5.6. But where do the apertures change as you zoom? So when you start at 25 millimeters, you are at 2.8. When you get to 27 millimeters, which is, watch this, that much of a turn, you are now at 3.2. At 34 millimeters, you get to 3.5. At 41, you're at f4. At 54 millimeters, you're at f4.5. 73, you're at f5. And at 96 to 200 millimeters, you're at f5. 5.6. Now's a good time to bring up Sigma's to talk about its range, because at 20 millimeters, you're at 3.5. At 21 millimeters, you go to f4. 29 millimeters, 4.5. 38 millimeters, you're at f5. 50, 5.6, and 82 and beyond, you're out at 6.3. So yes, this is a 3.5 to 6.3. This is a 2.8 to 5.6. We're talking about a third of a stop difference. It's really not that different when you get down to the brass tacks at the end of the day. But yes, this does go to 2.8 at 25, but by 27, you're already at 3.2. Let me jump in here real quick and ask you a simple question. Are you sitting on cameras or lenses or even video gear you're no longer using and you're not sure what to do with them? Well, here's a thought. Trade it in with Adorama and get paid. Adorama's trade-in program makes it super easy to sell or trade your gear in for cash or even store credit. In fact, if you decide to go with store credit on your trade-in, you'll get an 8% bonus on top of your payout. To get a fast, fair quote based on real market value, head on over to adorama.com/tradefro or stop by their New York City store for an on-the-spot quote. If you do decide to trade in online, Adorama covers shipping and insurance, so there's no cost to sending it in. Once again, visit adorama.com/tradefro and turn your old gear into something new. Now, back to the video. Let's take you out to Frankfurt, Germany, where I walked around town to show you what 25 millimeters is and then what 200 millimeters is. It's a pretty nice range. That is a large range to go from 25 to 200, and I'm happy with the images that I got right off the bat. But what about close focusing? Well, you can get to 6.3 inches on the close focusing side, or 16 centimeters when you're at 25 millimeters. When you zoom all the way out, you can get as close as 31.5 inches or 80 centimeters. So you could see that I got pretty damn close to this brass knocker on this door right here. And what am I at right here? I'm at 200 millimeters, and that means I'm all the way out at 5.6, and I think this is nice and sharp. I like the colors I was able to get, especially when I put on Skittles from FroPack 1. Generally speaking, you don't do portraits around 25 millimeters, but hey, Peter McKinnon was right in front of me and I was like, let's see what we can do at 25 millimeters at f2.8, and this picture looks really solid. It is really sharp when you zoom in on it. The background looks nice and inviting, and you can get background blur even when you're shooting at 25 millimeters, because the closer you get to your subject and the further the background is, the more the background is going to go out of focus. So very happy with the results I was able to get with Peter out here in Frankfurt. In terms of autofocus, this uses Tamron's latest VXD focus motors to help give you quick and accurate autofocus. Now, I use this lens on Sony's a7 IV, and generally I don't like the autofocus of that camera. It's kind of lags behind, but that's more of the technology in the camera and not a reflection of what the lens is capable of doing. With that being said, anything that I focused on did a very nice job. They were nice and sharp, they were in focus, it tracked subjects very well. One of the limitations that are always here with third-party lenses are, can you track a subject and continually autofocus with them? Sometimes I found that I could, and other times it just wasn't accurate. You just have to pop your finger off and pop your finger back down to reacquire the subjects. So yeah, it focused fairly well in the situations that I was using it, and you probably will find very similar results. Now, this lens does lack any form of stabilization built in. Thankfully for me, the camera had stabilization built in, so that way I was able to counteract any of my movement. In some situations, I was shooting it as low as 1/10 of a second, and that was to give me some motion blur of subjects walking by to convey the motion that was happening in the town square. In other situations, you might run into some issues where, yes, you could stabilize with the body, but it would be even better if you had stabilization in both the lens and the body. When you start adding stabilization into lenses, it adds price and it adds weight, which is something that most people don't want to deal with, especially in one of the lenses like this for their travel. Is it a deal breaker? The answer is no. Sigma doesn't have image stabilization in their lens that's competing with this one as well. But for those people who want something from Tamron that has that along with more reach, Tamron does have a 28 to 300 millimeter lens that gives you a little more reach, and that stabilization built in. This lens has 9 aperture blades, and yeah, you're getting bokeh balls in the background, even at f4.5 with the example that you're seeing right now. So it is possible. You can get things out of focus in the background. I've already shown you that this lens is capable of doing that. Get close to your subjects, have the background further away, and that's how you're gonna get that background blur. All in all, I was happy with the results I got out of this lens. Whether it was traveling to Germany, which it's small and light and doesn't take up a lot of space, and gave me a lot of bang for my buck to go from 25 to 200 millimeters and 2.8 all the way to 5.6. And even when I was out in the street festival here in Fishtown, bunch of kids were playing in a mud pit because it was the Kinetic Derby and they do weird stuff here. But the kids were playing in the mud pit, and I was able to get everything from the wider shot of them playing to the tighter shots of them hugging, or just someone sitting on the side where I could get a portrait. It is extremely versatile to be able to have a 25 to 200 millimeter range. Let me jump in here real quick because I want to show you our custom Lightroom presets in action on this photo right here, starting with Brooklyn. We've got C41 that gives it that awesome filmic look. We've got Copper Tone, Kaleidoscope, Saltwater Taffy, Thick, and Wet Hot American Summer. But check this out, new and exclusive to FroPack 4, we have 4 custom Lightroom adaptive presets called Face Enhance, Full Body Skin Enhance, Eyes Only Enhance, and Background Blur. So look, if you want to speed up your raw workflow, whether you're working on the desktop or on the go in Lightroom Mobile, our presets do not suck, as you can see. That's why we created 14 all-new custom Lightroom presets that you can check out right now at fronosphoto.com/FroPack4. While you're over there, you can play with the sliders to see the befores and the afters, and if you decide to pick them up right now, they are currently on sale. Or if you want to get the Grand Slam bundle, you can get FroPack 1, 2, 3, and 4 and save even more. Now, let's get back to the video. So as you can tell, I've gotten nice results with this lens, but there are 2 very important tests to talk about. That is the sniff test and the wind tunnel test. We're gonna start with the sniffy sniff and see what it smells like. Schnell! It smells like me getting yelled at by that guy at the airport in German. I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. He's like, it was English. I was like, I couldn't tell. I thought you were speaking German, and I don't speak German. Sorry, and I'm not Canadian either. All right, wind tunnel test. Can it survive? Ooh, I think it passes the wind tunnel test. So how much does this lens cost? $899, but Tamron does have other options to consider, and I'm gonna read them right now. They have a 28 to 300, that's $899. They have a 28 to 200, that's the older version of this, that's $699. And they also have that 50 to 300 that I mentioned earlier for $799. So they do have a bunch of different options if you want more reach or to save a couple of dollars. But if you're trying to decide between the Sigma or the Tamron, the Sigma comes in at $100 more, which is $999. So is it worth a $100 difference? Personally, in my book, I'd rather have the 20 millimeters over the 25 millimeters. That also means I don't care so much about the 3.5 to 6.3 versus the 2.8 to 5.6. That is very nominal. A third of a stop difference isn't going to make the difference at the end of the day, especially for people who just want to go out and take pictures. I think in between these 2 lenses, I rather have 20 millimeters all the way to 200, especially if you're traveling and you want to go and get those wider shots, but still be able to reach out and grab a few things. 25 to 200 is nice, and if you want to save $100, or you already are invested in the Tamron world and you want to keep parity across that, you can't go wrong with this. I was very happy with the results that I got. Let me jump in here real quick and say, do you struggle getting sharp, quality images like these in low light situations? Well, if so, I have a free guide to capturing motion in low light situations. Head on over to fronosphoto.com, look for this orange box, put your name, email address in it, hit send it, and I'm gonna send you that guide for free. Now, back to the video. The other thing to take into consideration is if you have kids who play sports or field sports, anything where that's like soccer or football or baseball, 200 millimeters is fine, but it might not be the reach that you need. So you might want to look at something slightly larger. But if you are traveling and you want that one lens to almost rule them all, that's small, that's compact, that's kind of affordable, that gives you quality results, you can't go wrong with either of these. I personally have already said, I rather go with 20 millimeters over 25 and spend that extra $100, but it's up to you to decide which one is right for you. I've given you as much as I can give you. Now let me know which one of these you'd like to go with. Let me know down below. Thank you very much for watching. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.